Today we are talking to Mamohau Nkosi. And Mamohau, Mama, how long have we known each other?
How long? I think a little over 2 years or so.
A little bit about over 2 years. Nonetheless, welcome to the TJ tribe. And Mamohau, who's Mamohau and what do you do?
Okay, yeah. Thank you, TJ, for having me. My name is, and good afternoon to the tribe. My name is Mamohau Nkosi from Davidton. I used to live in a squatter camp when I was growing up. But of course, And then my official profession, I studied civil engineering. So I am somewhat of a between technician and engineer, I'm a technologist almost. But because my accreditation is not in engineering, I went and did project management. So my accreditation is in project management.
Okay, nice.
So yeah, that's the long and the short of it.
You speak of coming through from a background of you were raised in a squatter camp. For some of us, we might not know what a squatter camp. Describe to us what your upbringing conditions on how you grew up and your circumstances of growing up and things like that.
So basically, it's wooden boards that are sort of put together. You can either use boards or galvanized sheets to build yourself a house. Yeah. So there's no proper heating in a space like that. There's no proper nothing, because even the actual structure was not solid enough to prevent water from coming through from the bottom. So yeah, there was no running water. There was no electricity. So those came a whole lot later. In fact, after I have left home after my matric. But the whole time, my studying for my matric, I would have to get a light and put together crates to make a table for myself to be able to study. So yeah, it was hectic. When it was cold, it was freezing. And if it was raining, the water will just come through and then we would have to clean up the water and something like that. So it was quite bad, hectic. Yeah.
You got siblings, Mamohau?
Yes, I do have 2 younger brothers.
Okay. So you're the elder one in the family?
Yes, I was the elder one. I was the first one who was privileged to actually go to Technicon, the tertiary institution that I went to at the time.
Okay. And the background of your parents, what did they do as you were growing up?
My mom was a preschool teacher, and my dad was a local priest and Fundis in these local churches around. Okay,
good. Yeah. And there you are, Mamohau, today. You're an author as well, right? So you recently wrote your first book that we wanted to talk about, but we just spoke a day about where you come from. The squatter camp that you make reference of, is it still available today? Is it still there? What's the name of it?
The church?
No, the squatter camp where you grew up in.
Oh, it's Emapupeni.
Okay.
Of course, it's no longer a squatter camps. There's now a clinic. There's a tar road. There's schools around. There's the running water and electricity. Yeah, even if we have load shedding, but yeah, we do have electricity.
Okay, good stuff. So times have progressed in terms of infrastructure in the area that where you come from. But I mean, when you were growing up, things were a little bit tougher, and you persevered to go through school, and you persevered to go through. I've been to your house, your new house that you have built, you and your husband. Beautiful house that you've got, full of glasses everywhere. Always wondering. if you are to upset anyone, they might just throw some stones at your house, and there might be a problem there. But beautiful house, where you stay in a beautiful estate in Johannesburg. And when I look at where you come from and where you are today, I'm like, flip, you have been doing amazing things. And for me, this is where I think a lot of people don't understand when we're talking about success. To me, you have reached a lot of success, right? That's my level. Knowing where you come from and knowing where you are today, and I'm like, whoa, even though you're employed, and you being an author, and you might not have these millions that people and the frupas and all of these things people think that it is success, but where you're coming from to where you are today, I say, well done, my friend. You have done yourself a good job. And also, statistically coming from a neighborhood like that, being married would have been totally out, isn't it? We could have probably putting you into a statistic of being prostitution, having a kid maybe at what, 12, 16, because that's what happens in these areas, isn't it? But you overcame all of this. And not only do you stay in a beautiful house, you're also married.
Yeah. Thank you. You're very kind in saying so, TJ. Yeah, I was lucky enough to have had the opportunity to go to school. And in the book, I talk a lot about my journey in terms of how things came together that gave me an opportunity to be able to go to school. And I was also lucky to have met someone who think along the same lines as me with regards to trying to build the wealth that we have in mind. And with property, which is where you and I and your wife's path crossed, that's where we actually are still learning and growing and building. So yeah, we were lucky to have met and have the same kind of thinking, which made building everything that we have and that we're still building much easier. Of course, it was not easy at first. We had to sort of find each other, but eventually when we did, we were able to sort of pull into the same direction. So I think we were very blessed to have had that combination.
I think one of these days I need to call you and Mr. Nkosi for us to have a conversation around building whatever that you're building is one team. Because obviously I know some of the journeys that you've gone through. But I think I just see a lot of people struggling, coming together and start to build, and yet they are staying together and growing old together, but they are not building together, which is also one of my pains as growing up. But I found the book. The book is here. And again, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity of one of the first few people to have gone through and read this book whilst you're publishing it. You're on a holiday now, and when you come back, you're going to launch your book, right?
Yes, I'm launching the book on Saturday, the 1st. Yeah, it's growing to be a big event. There's a lot of people who've registered because there's a link that people register to attend. So I'm grateful, humbled, and excited about that.
Amazing stuff. But I wanted to dive into the book itself, Mamohau. I've had the opportunity of reading. I'm not yet done. I am probably maybe 30% to finish it off. And I do think that I'll be able to finish it off within this weekend. But I've dug into your book, and I think the first thing that I want to start off by talking about around the book and why you have written the book is what, you could have gone and do other things. I mean, you do project management work and things like that, but now you've written a book. And the question is, why have you written a book?
Okay. First of all, I have not reached the financial goals or the wealth goals that I have. However, along the way, I learned that the first thing one needs to work on before they actually realize the wealth is their mindset. So obviously for me to be able to preach that message, I don't necessarily to have had all the wealth at that moment, because the moment I think like the wealthy, I am already wealthy as far as I'm concerned. So the reason I wrote the book was to looking at where I am coming from. That initially was the target market, to say how do we send the message back to the people I grew around, that their priority was to survive, and having them to start thinking beyond survival all the way to wealth. So that was essentially the driving force, or the reason why I wanted to sort of go back and send that message. And it became a surprise to me that even people, our peers, were the ones that got excited about the book. And I got confused, like, how I go, but that's meant for the other guys. But yeah, I'm also grateful about that as well.
I think
Yeah,
let's define. I think let's define when you're talking about, you sort of write in the book for the people that are just surviving. What do we mean by that? Because let's break it down. Because some people, they think that they are actually in a good space financially when they are actually just surviving. And I was in that space. I had a very good job at the bank. So was my wife. And when I look back at it with what we have achieved right now, and again, like what you mentioned, that you haven't reached what you think is your financial freedom goals, we are also grinding in the same space. But we are far off from where we were before, and having to understand that, Flip, at that time, we were actually just surviving. What do you mean by that?
I mean, people that go to work and get their salary, and the salary just is enough to pay for their their accommodation and the cars and everything, and there's not even anything left for saving. And people like that, mostly when you talk to them and talk about saving, they tell you, we don't have any money to save. All our money gets finished on our needs and debts and whatnot. Now, the problem with that situation is that should they be retrenched, then obviously it's over for them. Their lifestyle goes backwards because they did not plan for that eventuality. So to me, that defines someone who's just working to survive, who's getting enough money to be able to buy food and shelter and and wait for month end.
Which is the majority of South Africans. Actually, there was a study that
Yes.
was done with one of the big banks, FNB, not long ago. I think it was about a year or 2 years ago, where they did an analysis of people in South Africa that bank obviously with FNB. And they were saying that in around about 5 days, people's accounts will be wiped out. I think it was almost around about 95% of people that bank with them, which is a shocking stats to say, then what? How do they survive for the other couple of 30, 20, 25 days that are yet to come? But I suppose that this is where your book comes into play. By the way, Mamohau's book is available. If you want to catch it, you can catch it. We'll put a link in the description and you'll be able to read. I've been reading this book. It's quite an easy read. It's not one of those big books that you can read. I call this one of these books like an airport read. You can get it, and in about 4 or 5 hours, you'll be able to consume the information, but you'd also want to come back to it, right? So, Mamohau, I want to dive into the topic that gripped me. So I'm going to refer to your book whilst I'm talking to you, and And this is obviously for the person who hasn't read this book to say, what were you meaning by this? So in chapter 2, you speak about wealth people believe in abundance. And that's my language there. I'm like, when I got that earlier on in my journey, I realized I have so much. I also have like a very gruesome background like you. But where I am today, I realize I have so much. And yet I was thinking in the mindset of, I don't have, I need to have that. So explain to us, please, what do you mean by wealthy people believe in abundance, and how this thinking of abundance can actually help us almost like kick off our journey into wealth?
Okay. First of all, thinking in abundance does not necessarily mean you have all the wealth in the world. It just simply means whenever or whatever it is that you have, you are able to share without feeling like you have lost something. So wealthy people are able to do that. Now, the way that helps you is that when you come across opportunities, you don't fight someone else for theirs or for a bigger piece of the pie because you feel like yours is not enough. You have a sense of having enough. You have a sense of knowing when opportunities are strictly for you. You don't. It also gives a sense of peace and relaxation, so to speak, to say, I don't have to go bribe someone for my things to happen. So yeah, it also gives a sense of comfort for where you are, because sometimes opportunities don't, when you pursue them, it takes time for them to be realized. So whilst you're waiting, you don't have a sense of I'm uncomfortable where I am. You still find a way of appreciating everything you have, and therefore it is easy for you to wait for the next opportunity and to also be in a position to share everything that you have. I don't know if that makes sense.
It does make sense, Mamohau. You go on to speak about one of the last topics here you speak of is talking about losing everything and still feeling the sense of abundance, and for me, I'm like, I think Mamohau was with me when I had lost 5 million, because I still had shelter. My kids were still going to school, and I have food on the table. And even though I had lost everything at the time, I had a sense of feeling abundance. But you're the author here. This book is not about me. You're the author here. I know there's lots of people that have gone through losing during COVID. Some have lost relationship. Some have lost loved ones. Some have lost breadwinners. And some have lost a business because they were not prepared for what COVID brought us through. Now you speak here of saying losing everything and still feeling the sense of abundance. How practically do you do that?
Yeah, like I want to emphasize that it's still as a mindset issue. Like you're saying, TJ, you could have lost all the ways of making money, and you have to understand that there's two different types of people. Those who will feel like their world is over now that they have lost A, B, C, and D, and that person in that mental space will not be able to see opportunities going forward or be able to come up with ideas to pick themselves out of that situation. But the other one, on the other hand, who is able to say, oh, okay, I still at least have my brain, my body, my this, my, like you were counting, you still had food. you can use the little that you have to be able to find a way to think of ways to move forward. And a lot of people, I think I mentioned a couple of them that actually lost everything, but were able to stage a comeback simply because their mindset did not let them be defeated by the situation.
Amazing. I like that, because I think if we are really, this is for someone else who might be thinking that you are really in the slums and you've lost everything and there is no way out. There's quite a lot of wealthier people that are recognizable in our communities or at an international level who lost everything, and they made a comeback. So my recommendation is go and look for them and read their comeback stories. You're not down and out yet. And chapter 3, you speak about wealthy people have and practice endurance. And I almost want to ask you this question, Mamohau. The whole idea of building wealth, I think the unfortunate part of today's era is that we think that if we have made a couple of millions, we are now wealthy. And that's different here from what you're talking about, is it not?
It is.
Right.
Because you can make millions and lose the millions, but for as long as you have not lost the mindset, it will be easier for you to bounce back, as opposed to someone who has won a lotto and doesn't know what other formula to be able to put together to be able to gain that money back again.
Yeah. But I think where I want to come from here is that this whole idea of building wealth, it's not a sprint. It's not something that you're going to be doing overnight and then you get the millions. Great, you've paid up your house. Great, you've made $1 million. Great, you have won lotto. But real wealth surpasses, in my books. I've got kids now, 2 kids. You've met both of them, and real wealth for me is assuming that both of my kids are going to have kids, and your father is a potter. There's a great book that we read very occasionally, and it speaks about real wealth is passed on to your grandchildren. So I'm thinking my kids, I know them right now, but if I'm to build wealth needs to be within their kids for them to carry over into the next generations. That's what real wealth is all about. So if what I'm building now, I just get it like that, and I have no endurance for it, that's being rich in my books.
Yeah.
So there's a difference between being rich and being wealthy. What's your view around that, especially when you speak here about the endurance? Because if you have to endure something, it's like a sprint marathon. We all see the guys that do, what is this thingy? They are running for days, right? The whole, enduring the weather, enduring the steps, enduring the falls, right? And when we bring that into building wealth, what do you actually mean by that? And for a person who's a single mom somewhere, for a person who is just starting off, maybe starting to sell eggs, and they are thinking that, they've just gone past the phase now of putting food on the table, and now they've got a little bit of more money coming in. What does endurance mean?
Okay, in the book, I make an example about Vusi Tembekwayo.
Right. Oh, yeah,
today,
we all know him, the black dragon.
Yes, that today he's a household name.
Right.
But imagine him when he was still working from his bedroom, because he did indicate that he was working from his bedroom, and his girlfriend was the only person who was able to assist him. And now imagine that person having to tell people that actually I'm working towards being a speaker. And they most likely a lot of people who tell him that, look, you need to get a real job and not waste time. But through all of that, you need to have a strong mindset to be able to still believe in your dream. So it is all about having that kind of a vision for your future and betting on yourself by putting everything that you have towards working uh, forward, working towards what you're trying to achieve, and making sure that whatever criticism, whatever opposition you may come across, you are able to rise above it. And it does not mean that there won't be any disappointment. There will be, but you find a way and the strength to overcome them. Now, I think you spoke about the difference between being rich and wealthy. I don't know if you want me to speak on that, but yeah,
Yeah, go for it.
being wealthy can, you can still be wealthy and have and be rich. So being rich is having a lot of money for you to spend. But being wealthy, that is having a different kind of mindset, a building kind of mindset, whereby whatever money that you have, a portion of it goes back into being planted. I use a metaphor of a tree in chapter 1. It goes back to being a seed that which you want to grow and eventually have streams of income that never stops flowing. And as a result, you can have money work for you. Whereas if you are rich and all the money that you have is all about spending, it is a totally different mindset. And once that money stops flowing, because you're not working towards planting seeds, the moment it stops, even the plan stops, and then you don't know how else to be able to get it flowing again.
Yeah, Mama, how I want us to go back maybe to chapter 2. That something that gripped me on chapter 2 was you're talking about, planting and also going back into the whole idea of having the mindset of abundance, but also looking into the reality of where we come from and where we are. And you speak about black tax, which is a humongous reality for many people. The other day, I was talking to someone whose parents are in their late 50s and they just had a baby. And I was like, whoa. And this guy is in his 30s.
Wow,
And
indeed.
we're now talking, so we're now talking about, I mean, will his parents be able to look after this child that has just come through? And have they not just created black tax for him? So what's your views around black tax? And I'm going to give you my views around that. Maybe let's define what black tax is. I don't really think it is really black tax, but yeah, let's go.
Okay. My definition of black tax is just simply when you have achieved maybe a degree or diploma or some means of being able to have an income. By going back, you are expected to go back to your poor background and assist. Whether is teaching the next child that is next in line to go to university, or like me, I had to build my parents a home. So, and that happened with as little money as I had. So nobody cares whether the money that you're getting is not gonna be enough for you, but the expectation is that the little that you have, you still have to share with the family. So, but I believe it has created the person that I am as far as giving is concerned, and as far as also believing that by giving, I'm not making a shortage on my coffers, perhaps. So I think for me, the focus was on the lessons from the black text and the sense of appreciation from my family, which I'm grateful for, because I know there are other families that are not grateful. They still expect even more than you could give. But I appreciate the fact that my family was very grateful for the help that they got from me. So that pleased me, and that made me the person I am, I think. It is an unfortunate thing, however, when TJ, don't get me wrong, that the systems in the country that were there before have put us in that position whereby you cannot happily enjoy your money or decide to do whatever you want. You first needed to look after your family. It is such an unfortunate and a very sad thing that I don't want my kids to have to go through that.
100%. Yeah. Okay. All right. So I think for me, when I look at this thing about black text, I've always said I've got siblings. I've got more siblings than the number of fingers that you've got.
Yeah, I read about them in your book.
Yeah. So black text for me, really, especially when I got married, I realized that I am now a man of my own house. And with this is where I need to look after. But it does not mean that I need to forget where I come from.
True.
It took me a bit of time to figure out that actually I need to set some money aside. And that money is a round figure. So let's just call it 1,000. So we're going to spend 1,000 and this is to help. So that's what I've got within my budget. Anything over and above that, I cannot. Right? So I put a boundary around it. And earlier on, it was almost like Father Christmas kind of like thing. You know what I mean? And obviously, I learned very, very early on, someone said, if you are helping the poor when you are richer, you also become poor. So how do you guard against being poor again yourself? So you need to put parameters. This is just from me. You need to put parameters in terms of how much you can help while you're making sure that your household is cool. And that's what I've learned from other people that, practice different black texts. But I also want to jump into another topic here, Mamohau, that you write about. And that is on roundabout, I think it was on chapter 4, where you speak about creating opportunities. And I call this one, and that's why I said, Mamohau, you speak a lot of my language in here, because I call this finding a way to win. We are all in a different space in life. And just yesterday alone, I was playing with Hope on her phone, and she has this picture when she was around about maybe 3 or so. And in the background, I saw some eggs. And I said to Jen, oh, dude, we come far. We used to sell eggs at one point. I'd long forgotten about selling eggs, right? And this picture reminded me. And that was a moment in my life at the time where I was trying to find myself in business, and I was trying to find a way to win. And that is creating opportunities. So in that chapter here, you speak about wealthy people find a way in which they create opportunities. What do you mean by that, Mamohau?
I think for me, the education system that we went through tends to create, I don't want to say robots, but it creates a thinking that you just need to go to school.
Let's talk about the robot part, because
that's what
it is important.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you mean by that?
So what happens is that you go to school. When you're done with school, you go to tertiary. When you're done, you have to sit and wait for someone to hire you. And that is why we have a high unemployment rate in the countries, because we are waiting for someone who's going to come and say, you are good now, you can come. And then that person is going to determine your value. Okay.
Oh,
so for me,
yes.
it's a problem. It's a problem that the youngsters that are not working today would create anything. Literally, you can sell anything in this country and make yourself some money and build from there. Because what I don't think they understand is that the fact that you're selling peanuts on the street does not mean that you're going to be at the age of 60 still selling peanuts. You sell peanuts to raise money, to be able to grow the money. So I think for me, that is one thing that bothers me deeply, that we sit and wait for jobs to come our way. And which is why when I started writing the book, I felt I also needed a side hustle to prove the theory as well. So that's when I started selling perfumes. And it is amazing the amount of success I've had. And I'm thinking that if it was someone who was unemployed, getting the income that I'm getting just by selling perfumes, that would have gone a very long way. So, and the perfume thing, because I was just thinking that I need some kind of a side hustle. And I found this friend who was selling these perfumes, but I felt, no, this guy is not marketing this thing right. So I just went to him and said, listen, let's strike a deal. If I buy from you in bulk, how much you're gonna sell one perfume to me? And I worked out how much am I gonna sell the perfumes. And then I started from there. And my husband can tell you every month I'm making like very handsome profit from this. And it just blows my mind that why are people not doing that? Would you rather sit at home and say, no, I don't get a job, than just do a simple thing? Even if it gives you a 2,000 rands, that is something that is 100% better than a 0 rands. So yeah, that is the whole thinking thing about creating opportunities and, you know, having a mindset that is able to spot them when they roll around.
Yeah, so that topic there, or that particular conversation that you talk about there, Mamohau, I know that you have kind of like drilled in to people that are unemployed, but you also being employed, and you and your husband, you're in the property game, but you decided also to do another side hustle. And I'm thinking here, people that are employed, they are thinking, I've got a job. What? Selling perfumes? I never sell perfumes, me. Right? It's a side hustle. The importance of seeing and creating opportunities whilst you are at a job. How important is that in your view, Mamohau? Because I mean, I can speak from my perspective. You know, the show today is about you, but I can speak from my perspective to say, the day that I got retrenched, like 350 people got retrenched. Right? And this was not my first time of being retrenched. It was my third time, I think. I saw it coming. And by the time I got retrenched, I had a business that was bringing more money than I was earning. So for that reason, it didn't bother me to get retrenched. I was okay. But for the majority of the people, they were stuck. Right? So how important to you is it, especially on this idea that we're talking about, to think wealth, to dive into wealth creation, and where does it stop? I'm almost thinking that where you position this actually in your book, which is amazingly in a good position, because you speak about how you should be thinking, and then you speak about the practical way of how you should be enduring this, how you should be doing this, and you then say, well, what people actually see and stick. And I think for me, I underline stick in my book. I'm like, what is sticking? What do you mean by seeking opportunities? Right? It's going out there intentionally sticking. You know, it's unfortunate that you are married to Mr. Nkosi, but if I was sticking you, I'll be coming to your house every day. Ne? I'll be calling you every day. I'll be saying, let's go out. That's sticking. That's the definition of sticking, isn't it?
Yes.
Right. So now that we have defined the definition of sticking, we can say you are fortunate being married to Mr. Nkosi. So what did you mean by this statement? Because for me, this was, your entire book was amazing, the way I've read. But for me, that was the most important piece for me. I'm like, even though I've done what I've done, but I continuously, my money should not be sitting in the bank. I should be seeking opportunities, right? When I have reached the level that I've reached, whatever level that I need to create other opportunities. So this topic, it hammered home for me in an amazing way, but I'm going to leave it to you to explain it to us what you actually mean.
Okay, I make an example about the motivational speaker, Les Brown.
Right.
Who, Les Brown initially wanted to be a DJ at a radio station. So Les Brown went every day to a radio station. Now, you have to picture this to see how ridiculous it is. So he gets there and he asks for a job from the station manager. The station manager says, no, there's no job, goodbye. Okay, so he goes back home. And the following day he comes back and says, I'm looking, I'm looking for a job. And the guy says, but I told you yesterday there's no job. And then he says, no, but maybe someone was fired or someone died, you know? So he goes back home and the guy says, no man, nobody was fired, no one was retrenched or died, go back. Then he left. And eventually he started coming back, and this guy obviously ignored him now because he sees this guy is not right. So he stuck around and started washing cars of the DJs there. And then eventually brought them coffee. So he and then he kept on coming every day. And one day, this DJ couldn't continue with the show because he was too drunk.
Oh wow!
So, yeah. So now, the station manager called, and he was the one who picked up the phone. And the station manager said, you need to call another DJ to come and fill in the position because this guy is not going to be able to finish. And then he says, no, oh, okay, I'll call someone else. And then he started practicing to go on air. And then he calls the boss and says, I can't find anyone. I can't find anyone. And then the boss says, okay, do you think you can do this? And he says, of course I can do this. And then immediately he went in and he became the best DJ because number one, he was prepared. This guy means he was practicing wherever he was.
Right.
So that should the smallest opportunity open up, he was going to jump in there. And secondly, he did not wait for someone to tell him there is a job. He stick around enough because he wanted this so much. So I think that was the most inspiring story for me, as a like indicating that opportunities are not gonna always be handed to you in a platter like that. You need to find a way to seek them. I also make an example about me when I was studying. So at some point I failed. I don't know if you've gotten to that part yet. So I failed all my studies. So essentially I had removed my focus from my goals. So I failed everything. So I lost my bursary or my ability to apply for loans and whatnot. So I went back home. So the reality of the situation was staring me in the face at that moment. So I couldn't believe that I had put myself in that position. And I prayed to God that should a small opportunity come, I promise I will not waste it. So one time, you should have seen the look on my parents' face when I woke up one day and I said, I'm going back to school. And they said, what do you mean? Because you don't have money to go to school. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't have an answer for you. I just need money for taxi. So they gave me money for taxi. And luckily, when I got to school, a friend of mine who was in the SRC was like, hey, there's actually people we're looking for a job. So I was able to work during the registration. So as a result, that's how I was able to pay for my studies. But I actually wrote a nice summary in the book in terms of all the lessons that I've learned. And the lessons, TJ, as well, is even for that DJ that got drunk, for us, the lesson is that if you get an opportunity, do not play with it, because you never know who is around the corner waiting to take over from you should you stumble and fall. And equally so with my situation, whereby had I not stood up and gone to school, even though I didn't have a plan, that job would have gone to someone else.
Amazing. I really like that.
I don't know if that answers your question.
It does, Mamohau. There's other several chapters here, so I am jumping into the chapters that have spoken to me whilst I was reading the book. And by the way, if you're watching this from wherever you're watching and you're like, wow, this is cool, and you've got any other comments, right here in the comments, drop them and we'll respond to you. But this is Mamohau's book, which is called Think Like the Wealthy, Not the Rich, right? And it's available. You can jump onto the shop and you can be able to get it. The link is in the comments there. Mamohau, you speak in your last chapter about wealthy people having unshakable faith. I think what I have seen, and I've gone through that myself, the moment that you touch a little bit of a few 100,000 and a couple of millions, the idea of control or wanting to control. I've been working through this with my business coach, and I want to know everything. I want to know what if. I want to know the 15 ifs that are going to happen. If this if happens, and so I want to know everything. My wife thinks that I'm a controlling freak in my business, but my business coach said to me the one day, where is the element of God if you are wanting to control all of this, and you're wanting to know all of this, and you're planning for all of this? Where is God going to come in your business and save you in your business? Because you save him. And it struck me a little bit, and I realized, I think there's nothing wrong with knowing and putting plans. Your background is project management, so you're always planning. If things go this way, we're going to budget like this. So, but there's also the freaking part of it of now you're just going above board here. But I want to bring it back, Mamohau, in terms of the wealth having to believe in something greater than themselves. Because when I started working with my business coach and I started to understand that sometimes I have the ability to do things because I can physically do it, but some things I need to leave it to God. So I put in an offer on a deal. I put in an offer on buying a business. I have done everything in my power, but I just need to go back to my greater being and say, God, you got this. I have the money. You blessed me on the previous deal. Help me to go through this. But I want to speak to the point where you speak about this in the book, Mamohau, or where you speak about having faith, great faith. What were you meaning by that?
But I think you've spoken about it, DJ. However, I try to explain that actually having faith is a sense of bringing things to life.
Right.
Okay. So when you have a vision or you dream about something that you want to make happen, the moment you believe in it, you having faith. So in other words, it does not exist in the material world yet, but
Right.
you believe in it so much that it sort of exists in, I would call it a spiritual realm, but like it is there, even though you have not touched or experienced it with your senses, simply because you believe it. So that belief situation is the energy that actually helps bring you things to existence. I make an example about our home. When we were building our house, first of all, before we could even know that we could afford our house, I started visualizing, because that's what I wanted. I started visualizing about what am I gonna do to the balconies, to, how am I going to enjoy my new home, should I get it, and all of that. And then eventually we were able to get the land to be able to build. Now, what has happened is that during the process of designing the house, because each one of us had to indicate what they wanted the house to look like. So when we did that, we would go to the land without anything being built. But as we were walking around, we're pretending that we're in the kitchen or in the bedroom and all of that. So generally, that is what a faith is about. Now, the second part is believing in the higher being. Because this is not necessarily a Christian book, even though I am a Christian. You need to be able to explain it in a way that which, when you talk about the fact that as human beings, there will be a point where our efforts will end. And you're going to need to be able to rely on a higher power to assist you in moving forward, to assist you in having a foresight, knowing things before they actually happen. So when you read about all these wealthy people, the Oprahs, the Elon Musks, actually, all the wealthy people that you can find, a lot of them have this kind of faith. They believe that they can do everything in their power, and the rest they live up to the higher power. And for me, I felt that was quite profound. And it also gives you a sense of multiplying whatever it is you would be building, because it will not only end with your human power, it will be, increased with the higher power as well.
I like that. I've got a problem with people of faith. I want to say that. The majority of them, where sometimes the focus becomes the faith, the fasting, and the praying without the work. Where do we differentiate, Mamohau, the work? Because you have given us a very practical example here of when you go through to build your house that I've been to in a very beautiful estate. And you had to work with your current job for you to qualify for that. You had to work on the plans. You had to work with whoever that came through. You had to work with the builders when they were on site. There was physical work that you had to do. And my biggest challenge that I have with people of faith is that we just pray and pray and cast demons and pray and cast demons and pray. And we are hoping somewhere along the line, the miracle is going to come in and say, there is your house, it's fully finished, move it in. That's my biggest challenge. But I'm glad that you speak of the practical part of this. Yeah. Am I the only one who sees this? Do you also see this?
No. You're not the only one, TJ. And you see, alongside school, people of faith also have the same mentality whereby when they believe that when they tithe, the windows of heaven will literally open and the money will just flow out. And I'm glad I have an opportunity to go speak in one of the conferences over Easter, because I think we should just stop that mentality. The Christian community is, most of the ones are the ones that are also looking for jobs instead of creating opportunities where they are. So it also bothers me, TJ, that we as Christians don't think outside the box. We're also waiting for someone to hire us instead of creating jobs for ourselves. And I mean, I would like to live in an environment whereby by the Christian community that creates so much jobs that even giving back to the community in which they operate is not a problem, such that a person who's passing by wants to be part of that community. But yeah, one session at a time, I guess. We'll get
100%.
there.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Mamohau Nkosi. She's the author of this lovely book here. The book is called Think Like the Wealthy, Not the Rich. It is available in the shop. I've had the pleasure of reading the book. Coming from where Mamohau is and having the ability to write a book like this one is an amazing achievement. But this is not Mamohau's achievement. It is the beginning of her doing the God's work, and for you to receive it. What do I mean for you to receive it? Read the book. Take what is practically in the book, apply it in your life, irrespective of where you are in life. I think there's lots of things that are in this book here that I have read that I'm like, oh, I think I need to change this. Or I need to do more of this, because she reminded me of certain things that I'm familiar with, but I need to do more of it. So Mamohau, well done on writing the book. And I am trusting that, hey, anyone who's going to buy the book is going to be, I'm not going to speak like a faith person, to say they're going to be blessed. No, we don't want them to be blessed. We want them to create opportunities. We want them to start thinking like the wealthy do and to put actions into that. So thank you very much, my friend, for putting this book together. And your success, no, these days I don't say your success. These days I say be fruitful beyond money. And that's what it's all about. So thanks a lot for coming through. Any closing comments? I was going to ask you your favorite book outside your own book, but you've said quite a bit today. So I think let's leave it there so that the people can just go and buy the book. Isn't? Any closing comments from you?
I think the ultimate message, like you've said, TJ, is that action. I speak about 3 different kinds of people in the book. That the first one is comfortable in their situation. They don't see anything wrong. They're happy going to work, coming back, watching TV and going to bed. The second one is the one who's gonna be curious and say, how do I make more money? Where is the side hustle I can engage in? The third one is the one who is not interested in excuses, and he will not pick up one book, but he will pick up several books to empower themselves and go on to apply what they have learned. Now the question is, which one of the 3 people are you? So that's meant to challenge everyone out there to say, what is the action that I am going to take in order to better my life. So if I were to leave everyone with that one message, that would be it, TJ.
Mamohau Nkosi. We will see you on the next video.